Welcome back, Chef's Assistant, to another episode of Video Game World Tours, a series where I shine a spotlight on weird little spots you might have missed in games you love. Today's trip takes us to the land of Gielinor, old school style. We're starting this tour off with an area you're surely familiar with, Tutorial Island. You are familiar with it, right? Every account in the game has set foot on Tutorial Island, but nobody's returned. Once your character is teleported away at the end of the tutorial, there is no way to go back. Technically, you see it again if you make a new account, but the vast majority of people probably just have one. And for those that do make another, how many actually look around here? I'm gonna guess nobody. They just want to get off the island and start playing the game. So let's appreciate our time here while we can. When you log in for the first time, you find yourself in a room with the Gielinor guide. I don't really think it says house, because I don't see a bed anywhere. Does he live somewhere else, and this is just his office job? He probably comes in from 9 to 5 to greet new players. Not a bad place to spend most of your day. It's pretty cozy in here. You got some rocking chairs next to a roaring fire, a dining room to enjoy your lunch break in, and beautiful paintings to look at. It's interesting that this is the first room every single player of the game has been in, but I bet very few remember the details. Like this rug, or this chest with nothing in it, or the fact that this building has an inaccessible second and third floor. Look at that! There's steps on the rooftop area leading into what looks like enough space for a second floor. Maybe it's just the rooftop area and the bottom floor, who cares? Either way, you can't get up here. On the ground floor, there's no staircase leading upwards. Nothing outside either. I wonder if whoever designed this really thought about that. Like, maybe they intended for you to go up here at some point, but decided to keep the first room you see in the game as simple as possible. Don't distract the player with a staircase to a room that has no importance this early on. After learning how to cook, you reach the west side of the island. What a beautiful little view, gazing out at the open sea. Technically, if the game rendered out far enough, you'd actually see Mudskipper Point and Karamja, but this game is defined by its short render distance. We'll talk more about that later. A little bit further down the path, you can actually see something in the distance. That's the Wizard's Tower, a place you can visit later, as well as this mining outcrop right at the corner of Lumbridge Swamp. I'm pretty sure those aren't the actual locations. Like if you had a friend go to this corner of the Lumbridge Swamp, you wouldn't actually be able to see him from Tutorial Island. But it's cool that they went out of their way to add these landmarks to make it feel like you aren't just in an instanced area. This house is where you head underground and start the combat tutorial. But we're not going to do that. We're going upstairs. How many players do you think have been up here? How many people have examined these exact statues? How many people have noticed how tall this bed is? I love that this room exists purely for flavor. The guy doesn't ask you to go upstairs and grab something for him. You can choose to follow the arrow, or explore a bit. In the caves beneath the house, you meet Vanica, the combat instructor. I think Vanica is the only NPC on Tutorial Island that has a presence outside of it. He's a Slayer Master you can find in the Edgeville dungeon. If the Runescape wiki is anything to go by, it seems like he was the combat instructor first, considering he was in the RuneScape 2 beta in early 2004. Slayer was added as a skill in early 2005. But the wiki seems to indicate that Vanica was a separate model from the combat instructor version of himself, even back then. I wonder what Vanica's purpose was before Slayer was introduced. Does anyone know anything about that? Alright, let's finish up Tutorial Island real quick. We got another secret second floor in the church here. There's an NPC you can spot off the east coast from another island called the Node. He just catches fish and says some lines. And the final building isn't completely covered by the roof. That's kind of weird. Okay, time to leave Tutorial Island and begin our adventure. I feel different. Anyways, this is probably the place most players are actually familiar with, Lumbridge. Just like how every player starts the game on Tutorial Island, every player is teleported right to Lumbridge. and from here, everyone's path forks off. Some people might go to the Grand Exchange to make a fat stack of cash right off the bat. Some might run off to distant lands to do God knows what. And some just hang out in Lumbridge, killing goblins, doing quests, and just vibing. There are definitely bigger settlements to be found in the game, but Lumbridge feels special. There's something comfy about it that can't keep me away. It does have this castle, but it's a relatively small town, if you can even call it that. There's the castle, some shops, a church. I don't think there's a single house around here. It's a quaint little place. Let's investigate the castle. There's a dining room, as well as a kitchen run by a chef who definitely knows how to make a cake. Going up the stairs leads you to the second floor, an area I don't walk around in too often. There's the living quarters of the Duke of Lumbridge. Not a bad room. 2 rugs, some statues and banners. Where do you think he keeps his PlayStation 2? Beside that is a guest bedroom? There's no special named NPC in here, so it could be for anyone. Through this door is the battlements. That's what these are called, right? I don't think I've ever walked out here. It's a pretty good defensive position if the goblins ever decided to invade again. On the 3rd floor is the bank. Everyone's familiar with this room. It's funny how crowded this tiny little room can get. Heading out of the castle, I don't think I've ever been in these towers. There's so many rooms in the game that never get used for anything. I've only completed a third of the quests, so maybe some of them will see use at some point, but you know what? I'm gonna definitively say that this room has not, is not, and will never be used for any quest ever. And you can quote me on that. Let's visit a slightly larger town, Falador. It's a bigger location, but it doesn't see quite as much foot traffic as Lumbridge. From what I've gathered, it used to be much more popular back in the day, especially before the Grand Exchange was introduced and allowed people to list their items on a marketplace for people to buy instantly. Before that, you had to trade players directly, so people would stand in a certain part of Falador and advertise their items for sale. I don't know if people actually followed this map's suggestions to a T, but regardless, look at how many people are here. So many players just hanging around. And look at it today. Just a handful of NPCs wandering about. And that trend extends to the rest of the town. You occasionally have people running to and from points of interest, but Falador isn't really a place to hang out anymore. This rather large town is mostly dead. The Falador party room is another example of that. Sometimes you'll come by and groups of players will be dropping expensive items on the ground for others to pick up, but nowhere near as often as it used to happen. Look at this chunk of buildings. They originally existed for no reason other than flavor. They've since been given purpose with the rooftop agility courses and the Mahogany Homes minigame. Mahogany Homes is a minigame where you're asked to go to random people's homes and fix up their furniture. I really like that it forces you to go to areas you might not have ever been before. I can guarantee you that if it didn't exist, I would have absolutely no reason to enter Larry's home here. It gets some mileage out of areas that might not have been seen otherwise. Then again, having an area purely for flavor can be nice. Makes it feel less video gamey if there are some buildings or rooms that aren't used. I am entirely unfamiliar with Falador Castle. I've done a few quests that had me run around here, but that was in one eye and out the other. There's something about castles in this game that makes them feel like mazes. So many floors, and they connect in ways where you might have to zigzag between them to reach a certain room. Ugh. Apparently there's a second floor to the barber shop. I think this is another room that will never see anything of importance added to it. Look at how tiny this is. I love it. Before we reach our next town, I want to talk a bit about the game's presentation. This isn't the vanilla look of the game. I'm using a plugin to hide the HUD so you can better see the environment. And even this isn't the traditional HUD the game launched with. This is the look I'm sure non-RuneScape players are familiar with. And even then, I still have a plugin enabled that changes how the game is rendered. I'm gonna zoom out all the way here. See how far you can see in the distance? Let me just disable GPU rendering. This is what the game looked like in 2007. And it's how the game was intended to look back then. There were no options or mods you could install to change that. You were stuck with this look. Everything in RuneScape today, excluding all the new stuff they've added, was designed to be viewed through this tiny viewport in short render distance. Nobody plays the game like this in 2023. And while a lot of players still use the classic layout, I feel like newer players are drawn to this layout that allows you to hide the menus so you can get a better look at the game world. Playing like this changes how you view the game. Of course, it literally changes how you view the game, but I'm talking about on a metaphorical level. The game feels claustrophobic playing with GPU rendering disabled and the classic layout. Even back in the mid-2000s, this felt cramped. It was designed like this because it was meant to run in your web browser. But that doesn't stop people from comparing it to games like World of Warcraft, which, and I'm gonna blow your mind here, launched in the same year as this updated version of RuneScape. In 2004 is when RuneScape got its big update from this to this. It's crazy to think that World of Warcraft was around at the same time. But obviously, web browsers weren't powerful enough to run anything close to World of Warcraft. So RuneScape was stuck with this tiny little viewport for a good long while. When old school RuneScape launched in 2013, it had the classic layout. Then, in 2015, resizable mode is introduced. They even say in the blog post, enabling resizable mode will immediately expand the game to fit the size of your client window, letting you see the old school world like never before. It might seem like a small change going from classic to resizable, but you're able to see so much more at any given time, it's wild. And later down the line, you're able to increase the render distance? It reminds me of how you can increase the render distance in Morrowind to crazy lengths and see stuff from areas you were never supposed to. It fundamentally changes how you perceive the game world. And in a way, it kinda goes against how the game was designed to be viewed. The cramped feeling of a short render distance and tiny window makes the game feel more personal. When I can only see this far at any given time, I'm much more likely to take in my surroundings. I'm living in the moment. It's much easier to imagine myself in this world. But when I'm zoomed out all the way and at a max render distance, I'm taken out of my character's shoes. I can barely even make out any details on my character from here. I'm treating the game less like a world to become immersed in, and more like a bunch of geometry to walk around in this video game level. I've actually found myself using a lower render distance in the classic layout to better emulate the 2007 RuneScape experience. I still do use GPU rendering so everything's sharp, but I don't want to see 20 miles away. Keep me focused on what's in front of me. Alright, back to talking about locations. Varrock. I don't even know where to start with Varrock. It's in the running for largest city in the game, and man, there's places I probably haven't even been yet. What are the places everyone knows? The city square? It has this nice little fountain. The West Bank? There's always a handful of people here. The Varrock Castle. Guess I shouldn't neglect this one. It's a little maze-like, but it's not as bad as Falador's castle, thankfully. Some actual lodging for the people here. That's much appreciated. Some shoes, tools, a jar of orange. What else do you need? Here's the top of the castle. A lot of guards roaming about. This rooftop definitely isn't used for a quest. I can feel it. There's just so many buildings throughout Varrock. Let's quickly go through some of the spots that feel neglected. Here's the second floor of an archery shop. Very empty, I love it. Second floor of a sword shop. Got a living space and a nice little kitchen in here. Nice. Here's a relatively big upstairs area in this thief's hideout. I know that downstairs has a lady that gives you a quest, but she never had me come up here. And here, oh, I always run past this place, but I never climbed up myself. Huh. Alright, I'll talk about the Grand Exchange. The Grand Exchange is unique in that there's nothing particularly special about it. There's no intricately designed building that it's hosted in. It's just some clerks at the center of an open-air plaza. The environment isn't what makes this place special, though. It's the people. People from all across the game converge here to sell their items on the Grand Exchange and make money. This is the only place in the entire game where you can do that. So while there are banks all across the land to store your items in, there's only one Grand Exchange, and you gotta come to Varrock to use it. The Grand Exchange has taken on the role of public square. People come here to look for groups, advertise their scams, or just make new friends. The community has shaped the vibe of this place. It's a chaotic, crowded mess that features the best and worst of what humanity has to offer, and I wouldn't have it any other way. From the most popular spot in the entire game to perhaps the least popular, welcome to the Berthorpe Game Room. This is a place where you can play simple games like checkers or Connect 4 with your friends. But as you can see, there's not a lot going on. It's so bizarre. Look at all these tables for people to play games at, and all of them are empty. In the server list, worlds can have little descriptions that suggest activities for you to do in them. You don't have to do that activity, you can still do whatever. You don't have to be in the Wintertot world to play the minigame, but you're more likely to find a bunch of people playing it there. Of course, there's a world dedicated to the Berthorpe Games Room, and as you might expect, it's empty. There's a lot of places like this in MMOs. Content gets added, then players aren't as interested as the developers thought they were. Certain playstyles fall out of favor, the game evolves, whatever. Things change. And sometimes, places get left behind. This isn't like the random rooms we looked at earlier. Those were never meant to have actual content. This was meant to be a social space, for people to chat and hang out while they play fun little games. A distraction from the mind-numbing grind of getting to 99 agility or whatever. But for whatever reason, people don't come here anymore. And an even more obscure area are these rooms. You need to be above a certain rank in a particular game to enter its special room. Like, I need to have a rank of at least 1500 in Runeversy to enter here. How many people in the entire game have that? How many people could enter this room right now? It's weird to think that these little rooms might be the most exclusive areas of Runescape, only available to a few players, if any. If you want to see me explore another MMO, check out my tour of Final Fantasy XIV. Support me on Patreon to get your name listed here, as well as access to exclusive unscripted videos every other week. Thanks for watching, and see you next time.